welcome to our Realtor Spotlight. We are excited to have as my first guest here at our Realtor Spotlight, Otis Himes. Welcome, Otis.
Thanks, Richard. I appreciate you guys inviting me up to do this. It sounds like a lot of fun.
In about 2003, a really good friend of mine, Jeff LeDuc, said, I have somebody I want you to meet. And it ended up being Otis Himes. At that point, it was pretty, it was kind of like, okay, I can work with this guy. And it was great to get to meet you that day. But we started a friendship and a partnership that has lasted up until this day.
That's right.
Yeah, I was Otis's realtor. I remember at that point, I think you had acquired some lots.
Yep, that was right at the beginning of my home building stint, and we were building houses there in Moore in South Oklahoma City, and didn't know much about the real estate side of it, just the building side. And yeah, you came in, and we were quite successful there for a little while.
It was, I think we had 6 or 7 lots over there in Southgate, Regency Park area.
That's exactly
I think,
right. Yep.
And more, and I don't know, they were 110, 120,000 a piece. Brand new homes.
Right. Yep. Back then, yeah. Wish you could get those now. That's for sure.
Right.
So,
I think now they've doubled at least by then.
at least.
But anyway, then we went on. You got your own, almost your own subdivision, but you had 70 or 80 lots in this place over in Moore as well.
Yeah, I think in total, I think I built a little over 100 houses. Then when the '08 crisis happened, the housing crisis, it slowed everything down from a building standpoint, a financial standpoint. And if you recall, that's actually, I'd actually just went through a divorce, and you reached out to me and you said, maybe you should give real estate a try. And I kind of scoffed at it at first. But then shortly thereafter, I realized I didn't have a whole lot of options before me at that very time. And so I took a leap, got my license, and that was at the end of '09. And then I think I was active literally the first week of January of 2010. So going on my 14th year now.
I think it was a good time to start. I think the market had kind of caught up with itself and taken off, I think, from 2010 on.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
So getting out of the real estate side, before you became a realtor, before you were building, and then when we met in Moore, what got you, or where'd you come from? What made you who you are today?
As you know, but no one else out here does. I'm from a very small, tiny town, graduated with 24 kids in a little town called Wanette, Oklahoma, down by Ada. No one knows where that's at probably, and that's okay. Graduated high school and moved to Alabama, to North Alabama. My dad's company was out there. He was a contractor, and I followed in his footsteps and became a contractor myself. Moved back to Oklahoma in late '93, early '94, somewhere around there. Moved to Norman and started my contracting business there as a framing contractor. So I've been around houses literally my entire life. My dad was my mentor in that side of it, and taught me everything I knew as far as the construction side. And then as I got older and progressed into the home building side, where I saw everything from the ground up, from scraping the dirt to, putting the final touches on the paint before people move in. So it's been beneficial in my career to know how houses are built and what all goes in them, not only just from something I read out of a book, but yet real life experience. It's been very beneficial for me.
So being in the building and now becoming a realtor, what's been the advantage?
I think ultimately it adds validity to my clientele, and that when I say something, they know that I have experienced it. I've seen it with my own 2 eyes, and I believe ultimately that is where the trust factor comes in. If you can get your clientele to trust what you're saying and not look at you as a salesperson, which is what real estate is all about, then you can grow on that, and then they'll tell their friends, hey, this is my realtor, and he does a great job. Not only does he do a great job, but he knows houses from top to bottom, literally and figuratively.
Makes sense. So since you've started, I think you've almost sold $160 million in real estate since you've started. What is it about real estate, other than the fact that you had a building background? Obviously, those numbers aren't normal. what other advantage do you feel like you provide a client that you offer that isn't building related?
Sure. I think first and foremost, it's the amount of people that are in my network that I've met and kept relationships with for the years before real estate, and that has come back to be beneficial now in real estate. That you have that many people to reach out to and to give referrals and so forth. So that's the number one key is keeping relationships with people and not be what I call a one and done. You know, if you buy a house with me, you know, I don't want you to ever think you're never going to hear from me again. You know, my goal and my job is to keep up with you and check in and make sure that I'm there when you need me, but also that you're there when I need you. I think that's, you know, obviously you can't be best friends with everybody in the world, but you can definitely be friends and make sure that you're checking in on people that have been a part of your life on whatever scale it is.
Right. So you've sold 157 million. You've had as many as 30 million. You sold in, I think, 20. Was that the year that was 2020? I think you had 20. What is it that you know now? Because your numbers have obviously progressed since 2010, and they've gotten better and better and better. What is it that, if you look back at 10, 11, 12, what do you wish you knew back then that you know now that could have made a difference back then?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's really probably like any job or any sales position. It builds over time just naturally and organically with the clientele that you meet. But maybe I think back in the early days, if I would have put a little bit more time into what I call the start of real estate, that first year, 2 years, maybe doing more open houses, doing a little bit more of the cliche things, instead of kind of winging it on my own. I still was able to be successful those first couple of years, but I could have been more successful then, knowing what I know now as far as putting in the time, doing a few of the extra things that are part of the standard part of real estate, if you will. Now, everyone's different, and I know I'm different from everyone, so what works for me may not work for the next agent, but ultimately there are still some building blocks that works for everybody.
Sure.
Doing the networking, doing the open houses, getting out and meeting, lenders, insurance agents, those kind of things where there's possible referrals sitting there. That's something I probably learned later in the career versus earlier.
That's good. As you're talking, it makes me think of the things that I've learned from you, or the things that have made our relationship, I think, work. And if I think about relationships that I've had in my life, you're one that makes me think about, I feel like our relationship works for each other.
Sure.
I think
I agree.
I've provided some things for you that have helped you in your life, and there's no question about it that you've done the same for me. I think about you come across, I know you a lot more personally than most people do. You come across very confident. You come across very knowledgeable, and you are all those things. But we all have our quirks. We all have our insecurities. But the one thing that I know that put me in a position to where I am today is mostly because of you. You give me the confidence to be able to take the next step. I'm not a risk taker.
Right.
I figured that out. I thought I was as a kid. My dad always talked to me like I was a risk taker and a go-getter. And as life moved on, I don't know if it was the experiences that I've had since then, made me more skeptical to go to the next step.
Sure.
You gave me the confidence to leave the last brokerage comfort zone of being a realtor to do this. By the talks that we were able to have and the ideas that you gave me, I think I can think through things, but to spit them out, they don't come naturally for me. And then I hear you say it, I'm like, well, I've been thinking about that all along,
right.
But I never said it and never would have done it. So you have given me the confidence to do things that I don't think I would have done. I think, when I'm out and about and somebody says, hey, I need a plumber. Somebody says, hey, I need a roofer. I'm always like, I got a guy, I'll call you back. And then I call you and you say, okay, I got a guy. So, that's,
Right.
you add, the contact list that you have is enormous.
Sure.
Which is, I think, has made you successful in what you do.
Well,
for you, or still,
first of all, thanks for those kind words. And that really makes me feel good that you feel that way. It's the exact same in return. I wouldn't be where I'm at today without you. When you first, not really convinced me, but just talked to me about becoming a realtor. It wasn't number one on my list by any means.
Right.
I'd never been in sales. I'd always been in construction, even though I was a home builder. So kind of sales, but I had you. You were selling my houses.
Right.
So it was a leap for me, and it was necessitated by, not really being able to make any money at that time in the building business. So you encouraging me to do it, and then once I was able to get my license and get on board, you're the one who taught me how to set up my database, and you're the one who told me, hey, this is how you become successful in real estate, because obviously you'd been doing it for many years prior, and it worked, and I've had this much in sales because of those conversations that we had even way back then. That I took to heart. I may not have followed it to the letter, but and put my own spin on it. However, that is, I tell people all the time, there are three people in my life. I'm currently 48 years old that have shaped me as a person. First being my dad, and then a lifelong friend of mine named Danny Smith, who was a bricklaying masonry contractor that I worked with, and he was a bit older than me, but was a person that really taught me a lot about business and contracting and so forth, not and personal life as well. And then you have shaped me in the way that you view things, where I could see it at this angle, you would always give me another angle to look at, and that has proven to be beneficial in real estate, because when you're doing a cross sell with another agent, you're on two separate sides of the fence. So when you have to deal with a person, you got to remember they're working for the buyer or the seller,
right,
and you're working for the opposite. So the end game is different for each person, and
it really, but it's not. It's just close.
Right.
It's get them the keys.
Sure, but you have taught me how to. You have taught me how to work through issues, if there are any, and luckily nowadays there's not very many. But if there are issues,
right,
you've taught me you can't look at it from this angle necessarily, because this is our end goal, and so maybe you look at it from this angle. That is one of the most important things that you've taught me as far as real estate basis. In life, you've taught me plenty and helped me in so many ways. But from the real estate side, that's one of the biggest things, is that I never, I may have never taken that approach without your tutelage on that.
Tutelage. It's a good word. Yeah.
Trying to break out the big words today.
So one last thing, I guess I feel like I know pretty much everything about you, the good and the bad.
Right.
What's something that whoever's watching there today might not know about you?
I've never had a job. How about that? I've been self-employed my entire life, other than maybe that first 6 months working for my dad. I've been self-employed.
That doesn't sound like much of a job at that point. It sounds
right,
like.
yeah. So I've never filled out a job application. So I guess that's one thing that a lot of people don't know about.
That's great. That's great. So I didn't know about the job thing. I guess never thought that.
Yeah, but when you look at I've never filled out a job application. So
that's great. Well, I hope you get to know something more about Otis as you listen and watch the video. We'll be back for another one next week.